Hey guys, so welcome back to the video here, 1969 Topps, 664 cards. There's a lot more we didn't discuss, so let's get into what happened that year in 1969. Yeah, and there's one interesting card, card number 539, and it was called, it just said, Ted Shows How, and it was him with another Senators player, Mike Epstein, and it was in spring training, and he was just showing him how to bat because that was Ted Williams' first attempt at being a manager. He had been out of baseball for almost 10 years, and he was basically pulled back in by the Senators owner who kind of, schmoozed him back into being manager, and they kind of captured this in this moment in this card. But it's kind of an interesting card because there's no other card like that in the whole set, just this one of Ted Knows How. We know that Topps in 1969, and it had been a long time, that they had not had a team card in the 1969 Topps series. They just didn't do it. A lot of people think that this was because the fact due to, once again, 69 was a crazy year with everything that was going on. So what Topps did actually was, and this could have been sourced from last year's photos, we don't know, but what they did, and this, I think they came out later in the year, so it may have been after Topps had come to an agreement with the Players Union, but they actually put out these posters of the teams, and they were folded up and in wax packs, sold right alongside the baseball cards. And they were just, they were 11 by 19 posters of the teams themselves, and Topps put those out for the kids since they didn't have any cards for the teams in the 1969 Topps. So another set that a lot of people might not know about, a lot of people, is the 1969 Topps Super Set. It was a precursor to some sets in the early 70s, but rounded corners, slightly smaller than like regular baseball cards, but they were rounded corners, full photo, very nice looking. Such players as Mickey Mantle, Reggie Jackson, Tom Seaver, Roberto Clemente, a lot of good players, really beautiful cards. But these were a small subset, very rare. I wouldn't even call them subset. They were just a set. Very rare, and there's reports that these were only distributed like as a test run in New York City. And they're out there. You can see them on eBay or anything else, but they're very interesting cards. And the back just has the name of the player, position, team, copyright date, and that's it. But it's a really cool set that Topps put out that you probably don't see around very much because it was very rare back then in 1969. So yeah, you know what else? In 1969 Topps, in the 5th series, cards came out, and there was a printing variation. It wasn't on purpose, it was an anomaly, but in the circle where the player's name was, usually the last name was in yellow. Well, there's a variation of white, and that came across in the 5th series. So players like Willie McCovey, Gaylord Perry, Mickey Mantle, they had this variation, and they were rarer than the yellow. So the master set is more than 664. Some say it's closer to 700 with the variations. But that was one variation that came through, and it's caused, one of the most prominent variations is the white letter Mickey Mantle for 1969 Topps, that being his last year on the Topps baseball card as an active player. So that was interesting that those variations came out. And, they say there's between 35 and 50. I think they say 25 were verified. But that was a variation that came out, not on any reason that Topps wanted to do it on purpose. It was just a printing mistake at the Topps facilities in 1969. Yeah, so we know in 1968, Topps and the Players Union were not getting along. The Players Union had seen that, Topps was not paying fair wages to a lot of the players for their photos and their images being used on those photos. Marvin Miller, who is the head of the Players Association, Players Union, he saw that. And basically, he kind of motivated the players to say, you know what, spring training 1969, don't pose for any pictures because we want a fair amount of money. Well, so a lot of the players did not pose for any Topps pictures in 69. And that had Topps scrambling to get photos. I mean, scrambling. They were using photos from previous years and just cropping them in a little bit so that you could close up a little bit different, but it was the same image. And they did that for a lot of photos. But the one interesting thing that they did do that really create a lot of havoc even going forward to today, when you start to realize these things more, was their All-Star, their Sporting News All-Star subset cards. The cards basically, as you know, were laid out. There was a, Sporting News All-Star, and then there was a portrait of the player. In the background was like a darker image, an action shot. And everybody always thought that was the player and his action. But a lot of those weren't. A lot of those were dug up from either that year, reused cards going in the past. One of them was Don Kessinger. In the background is a picture from a 1964 Giants Topps Giant card. And I believe the last name of the player was Bailey. And that's him in that picture. And they did that for all kinds. I mean, Ron Santos card, number 420, the background swinging is Al Kaline in the card. So you see this throughout the whole Sporting News section for the All-Stars. And it just propagated from there, which made 69 a tough year for Topps to get out any kind of set. Yeah, a couple notable cards I didn't go over in the first video that I'd like to bring out that, were kind of part of the set that we didn't mention. One of them was Earl Weaver. This was his first year on a Topps card as the manager of the Orioles. He was manager of the Orioles for a long time, and that was the only team he managed. He never had a losing season until his very final season in 85-86. He led them to various and many championships, and they won one World Series. And he was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1969 is when he started out on Topps as a manager. The other one was Sparky Lyle. It was his rookie year. That was his rookie card. He was a wonderful reliever, three-time All-Star, I believe, and just a good middle reliever pitcher. Won the AL reliever who won a Cy Young for the New York Yankees. So great pitcher and awesome. Also, this was Johnny Bench's second year, and this was starting to get the beginnings of the Big Red Machine of the 70s. And, Johnny was a great catcher, and this was his second year card, and it does have the iconic rookie emblem on the Johnny Bench card. So remember in the 1985 Topps video, we talked about Gary Pettis' baseball card, which had his cousin Lynn on it, and it went into production. It was never corrected. That's the way it was. Well, something similar happened to that in 1969. The player was Aurelio Rodriguez, and the card went out, and it was actually the Angels bat boy, Leonard Garcia. It went out as that. So as kids were pulling this, thinking it was that gentleman, Mr. Rodriguez, it was actually the bat boy the whole time. The card was never corrected. It was never, updated. That was the card that went out. And a lot of people attribute that to the fact that was ongoing with the 69 set. Topps, in their kind of bumping heads with the Players Association, were scrambling to get images. And I'm sure, oversight was not great as they were scrambling to get all of these out to the people. And that allowed to be a bat boy to be an MLB player for one day and to be on a Topps baseball card forever on 1969 Topps.